both sort of two things, but they're both related, which is how context influences your memory. So just like you say, going back to the original place where you experienced something, it serves as a really powerful cue. So if you go back to that original context, then that can help you to remember things in a much more vivid way than you might have if you're trying to remember it someplace else. And the other thing that's interesting is if you change context, that makes it easier to sort of forget things and to, you know, so there's this notion again of fluidity of the memory and how context influences this.
But how different is the sort of being in a place physically, like your body is in that place, to having, like we did during the workshops, having the object in your hand to recollect a memory relation to the object. Is that do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do see what you're saying.
In terms of does the conceptualization of space affect? Because that's a space that reminds you of that particular thing.
Yeah.
Whereas the object, if you take it with you, you can detach it from a particular space and location.
Yeah.
Does that make a difference?
I think it does, actually. Yeah, and I mean, if we think about it, you know, the parts of I could get complicated talking about it.
Good. Tell me more.
But this sort of notion of being in a place. The sort of part of the brain that's important for space is called the hippocampus, and it also is important. It's a structure that people tend to think about in terms of episodic memory, so remembering a particular event in your life. And part of the reason, I think, and lots of people think that the hippocampus is particularly important for retrieving episodic memories, is because the representations in the hippocampus are so rich, because they're spatial, contextual representations. So if you imagine that you're in a particular place trying to remember something, you've got all of this stuff around you that can help serve as a retrieval cue for bringing back that memory.
It's like the art of memory in the old, was it the Greeks?
Oh yeah, they do all of these sort of mnemonic
exercises.
Yes. Exactly. Okay. So like the method of loci, for example, where you walk. You imagine yourself walking along a route, and at each place in the route, you have a particular thing in the list you're trying to remember. Exactly. So by creating that kind of really rich representation, you can remember things much better. And so something like an object that's sort of divorced from its surroundings is probably not as rich a representation, and so it doesn't give you. It gives you a cue that you can use to retrieve that memory, but it's just one cue. It's not, you know, the whole set of cues that are in a space or context. And so